Okay, here's the first PowerPoint video lecture for George Washington High School, Introduction to Sociology. Again, I know the juniors are testing this week, so we're not meeting this week. This is a chapter in an area that I am required to cover with you. It's not one that students are super excited about discussing. I try to save those for our actual in-class discussions, so I figured this might be a nice opportunity to use the videos to do this unit. It is important. You will need to have notes on this because, again, it's required for this course, and this information will be on your next exam, so you'll need to write down the important ideas, and probably will have you submit these notes for a grade. And this is an important topic. The economy is a big topic. It's very micro, and it's something that you guys are going to have to contend with and deal with when you're looking for jobs when you're done with college. So let's talk about the economy. What is the economy? Well, it's like public education, it's like organized religion, it's like the family. It's a social institution, but it's the social institution that organizes a society's production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. So what are goods? Well, some basic terminology first. And you need to be reading the chapter on the economy in your book. It will supplement what we're doing on these videos very nicely. Goods are commodities ranging from things that you have to have, in other words, necessities, to things that you really don't have to have, which are luxury items. So what are necessities? Well, we're talking about basic things like food. We need food. We need clothing. We need shelter. So, making you hungry with all this food. And we also need clothing, obviously. And we need a place to live. We need shelter from the elements. So these goods are necessities. Now, luxury items are things that you don't have to have, but they sure do make things a lot easier and nicer. And it doesn't take much common sense to realize that those at the top of the socioeconomic status ladder, or those with more money, have more means to both goods and luxury items. So cars, these are luxury items. Believe it or not, you don't have to have a car to make it in society. Boy, it sure does help, though. Nice big swimming pool. Again, jewelry, nice luxury items. Yachts, boats, things that we don't have to have. Now, services are activities that benefit other people. I'm going to take a guess that most of you in this class, when you leave college and you have your degree or your degrees and you're planning on seeking gainful employment, probably will be heading for the service industry, and we'll talk about what that means. Examples of services or service types of jobs include the work of teachers, the work of priests, the work of healthcare providers. A lot of you are heading to nursing, or you want to be doctors, maybe you want to be lawyers. These are all service jobs. These are examples of service or service work. Work of computer software specialists. Our economy is based largely on the service industry. We'll talk about that as well. So why do we value goods and services in our country? Well, first of all, we value goods and services because they ensure survival, especially the necessities like food, clothing, and shelter. They also make life easier. It's a lot easier to get to work and back with my automobile, living in Nitro, as opposed to not having one. I would have to catch a ride with someone, ride a bus, or even walk, which would be almost impossible. So they do make life easier. They also make life more interesting. The things that we can buy, the services that we can purchase, they make life more interesting overall. Now, something that I like to talk about, and we talk about this a lot in sociology, is conspicuous consumption. And you want to have this in your notes too. Conspicuous consumption, we may have talked about this a little bit when we talked about social class. In fact, I think maybe we did. Public enjoyment of possessions that are known to be very expensive, so that one's ability to pay for such things is flaunted. In other words, these are people who, they have nice things, they have made big purchases, these big status symbols, maybe homes, automobiles, mansions, jewelry. Not only are they buying this stuff, but they want to show it off. They want to, they want to show you what they have. People who are born, and get this in your notes, people who are born into wealth know nothing differently than the best in life. So you don't see people like the Rockefellers. You don't see people like the DuPonts. You don't see, people who have had money their whole lives, like the Kennedys, go on television shows and show off what they have because this is all they've known. Conversely, you have people born into the lower and the middle classes who amass their fortunes, maybe professional athletes, musicians, recording artists, who were not born into wealth. Now they have it, a lot of times feel the need to kind of show it off. It's like, hey, look what I have. And I always reference the show MTV Cribs. You have people who are showing off their expensive cars, their homes. I always reference the Mariah Carey episode where she pulls out a pair of high-heel shoes with like water in the heels with fish swimming in them. That's an example of conspicuous consumption. Now, there are three divisions of the economy, three major sectors, and we'll talk about them individually. We have the primary sector, the secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. You'll want to know what each of these sectors mean and be able to provide examples of each, especially as it comes close to test time. But I'm going to take them one at a time here. Now, to give you an idea, the primary sector will start at the bottom and we'll go more in depth. You're talking about basic production. The primary sector of the economy deals with the raw materials that come from the earth, agriculture, forestry. Coal mining is big in the state, fishery. Secondary sector deals with the production of goods. So in other words, the secondary sector deals with manufacturing these raw materials that come from the primary sector. We're turning them into stuff. More about that later. And then at the top, the tertiary sector, where most of us fall these days within our economy in this country. This is the service industry, trade, banks, transport, education, culture, healthcare. So, by definition, the primary sector is the part of the economy that draws the raw materials from the natural environment. Examples we've already talked about: agriculture, raising animals, people who are farmers work in the primary sector. Fishing, forestry, the wood that you have that you see around your house. Maybe you have a desk made of wood or doors made of wood. This comes from the forest, from trees. People cut trees down. These jobs are primary sector jobs. Coal mining is huge in this state. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about the primary sector. Now, with increasing technology, what we find within our country is that 100 years ago you needed lots of people working out in the farms, cutting down trees, doing all this stuff. So you had a lot of primary sector jobs. As technology has advanced, we now have machines and even computers that do a lot of this work. So it frees up people to do things outside of the primary sector. So we don't need as many people doing this stuff because of technology. So there are less people and less opportunities for people in our economy to work in the primary sector. Now, the secondary sector, this is the part of the economy that turns the raw materials into manufactured goods. Refining petroleum into gas. So, the oil comes from the ground, but it doesn't just go in your cars or your lawnmowers. It has to be refined. It has to be turned into something. Turning metal into cars. There are people with jobs who do this. Turning wood into paper. Now, again, with technology, you have machines and computers that will now do a lot of secondary sector work. So there's, again, less of a need for human beings to perform this type of work, which again frees up more people and it creates less jobs in the secondary sector. So we have gaps, we have fewer opportunities, I should say, for primary and secondary sector work because of technology in this country. Now, in underdeveloped parts of the world where there are not the availability of machines and computers, you still have people largely in agriculturally based societies doing the primary and the secondary sector type of work, but not in our advanced country, not in modern countries. So you see some examples of secondary sector work, turning these raw materials into, jars, if you will, to put food in, or metal for cars, or you can see the wood there on the machine there, turning the wood into paper or making it into furniture or whatever. Then we get into the tertiary sector. This is the part of the economy that includes services rather than goods. And I'm going to talk more about the tertiary sector in the next installment of the PowerPoint lecture. I'm going to call this the end of the first part of this PowerPoint lecture. Thank you.